This week, I had the pleasure of interviewing Jess Bojorquez, who is easily one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. I know for most of us, it can be really easy to forget just how hard running can be. We run so much that we get jaded to the miles, constantly upping distances and the paces, and when something goes awry, we get frustrated at setbacks that, in the grand scheme of things, really just aren't that big of a deal. I started running about a year ago and was struggling to run 1 mile altogether. Now I'm frustrated when I have to cut my long run down to 10 for some reason, be it time or poor planning or whatever. And even if we know how hard it was, we can forget what that actually feels like, which is why when I met Jess online, I immediately wanted to interview her for the podcast, and she was kind enough to oblige. She has a story that a lot more people need to hear. At the very least, it will likely put any issue you might be battling into perspective. I know for me, I have a knee injury. It has happened since I talked to her, and my chat with her has definitely put it into perspective. Before we get rolling, Jess messaged me after we finished recording and wanted me to be very clear about the difference between motivation and discipline, something you probably heard me say before. It's okay if you don't want to get up and do your long run or your sweat test or your workout. If you hate it, then you might want to ask why you're pushing an activity that requires it. But if you really have a goal, and these are the things required to get you to the goal, then you have a choice. Because you're an adult, and you always have a choice. And your choice is do the thing because it will take you to your goal, or don't do the thing because you don't feel like it. Choosing the first option, the vast majority of the time, is what discipline is. It's setting goals, both end goals and process goals, and creating the habits that help you do the things to get there. And Jess is the perfect example of this. She says she doesn't always want to do her long run or wake up early. And to be clear, just because we didn't address it, she actually does get a good amount of sleep. She just goes to bed very early. But she does all of these things because they serve her long-term goal. You're not bad because you don't always want to do the thing. You're human. Motivation is supposed to go up and down. Dopamine is supposed to fluctuate. Jess says one of her favorite Spartan race quotes is, real difficulties can be overcome. It is only the imaginary ones that are unconquerable. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't be smart. Doesn't mean you can't take a day off. Doesn't mean you always have to do hard things. In fact, you should have a way to unwind. You probably need a break occasionally. But it does mean that if you have big goals, you're not going to want to do them all the time. And discipline is the way out of that. So with that, let's get to the interview with Jess. Welcome to the Eat Well, Sleep Great, Run Far podcast. My name is Will Frantz, and I'm here to help you go farther, faster, and longer without injuries, gut problems, or giving up your favorite foods. All right, this week on the podcast, I have Jess Bojorquez, and she is someone I met through Facebook, and her story was immediately inspirational to me. And you'll hear why in a second. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but needless to say, you'll definitely want to stick around for this one. Just first, I would love to ask you, I'm a big dog person, and you have an adorable dog from what I've seen on Facebook. Tell me about your dog.
Yes, I have a dog named Gwen. She is a 40-pound Labradoodle. When I first got her, I got her to be a pet. However, I had some incidents at work where I was falling and fell down the stairs, a metal staircase a couple of times. And so I decided to train her to work as a service dog
That's
for
awesome.
me. Yeah. So she is fully trained to work as a service dog and goes to work and has been on airplanes and to hotels and goes everywhere with me.
Oh wow, that's really cool. What does that entail? How difficult is it to get a dog to become a service dog?
It took about 2 years of
Oh, wow.
training. We worked at least once a week, sometimes more often, with a professional dog trainer. And really, the dog trainer was training me how to train the dog. And then I would work with the dog every day to train her, not only to be able to perform her tasks to mitigate my disability, but also to be able to act in public in a way where she can pretty much seem invisible. I have people all the time tell me, "Oh, wow, I didn't even realize you had a dog." And that's definitely the way a service dog should act. They should be invisible except for when they're doing their job.
That's super cool. Yeah, one of the trainers I work with at the gym has a service dog there with him at all times, and she's so sweet. But yeah, mostly just completely under the radar. You'd never even know she was there, other than there's a dog very clearly in the middle of the gym. But otherwise, it's very like yeah, very
Yes.
clearly like doing her job, just doing her thing. That's
Yeah, that's
awesome.
great.
What is so I guess that kind of brings up the question as to why I have you on here. When you mentioned disability, please say more about that. This is the part I actually don't know much about, other than it kind of blew my mind. Like what are you struggling with? What's your background here?
Yes, I was born with a connective tissue disorder. I'm missing ligaments and tendons throughout my body. My whole life, I've always believed the doctors and physical therapists who told me that I likely won't be able to walk for very much of my life. Definitely should never run. I maybe could use a stationary bike, maybe could learn to swim, but should never do anything high impact because it would be too damaging on my body. And I don't have the connective tissue that would be able to support my joints. And so I would do an extreme amount of damage to my body if I tried to do anything like that.
Jeez, what's your disorder called?
I don't know that it has a name.
Shit.
It's a
Okay.
genetic disorder that runs in my family, but
Fascinating.
it seems to be fairly specific to my family.
I'm sorry, that's terrible. But like let's dive from there to like why I'm more fascinated than anything else. Like how far are you running now?
The longest run I've done so far was 9 miles, which was last weekend. Um,
Fire. That's awesome.
Today I did a long run, which was 7 miles, but I was able to do it faster than any of my other runs so far. I had promised myself, which I almost never do this because I've fixed my diet most of the way, but I promised myself I could have biscuits and gravy after
Oh
my
yeah.
run. And so I ran faster than I have ever run before. It was great.
How are the
I was
biscuits and
done
gravy?
so fast. They were amazing.
Oh yeah, good for you. How fast were you done?
Um, I was done, I think, in about an hour and 24 minutes.
Oh yeah,
So just
that's
over
awesome.
12 minutes per mile. And I had been around the 13 to 14 minute before that. So it
That's
was
so good.
definitely an improvement.
That's awesome, Jess. That's really cool.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, that's an appreciable pace, right? Like I'm proud of that on some of my long runs. Right? Honestly, that's fantastic. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Let's back up a little bit. Some of the stuff that you and I were talking about. So Jess and I were, for the listeners, Jess and I were chatting before we got going, and she just kept telling me this story that I like had to interrupt her in the middle of because I wanted to record it. How did you get into running? Tell me a little bit about that. Your brother, everything we're getting into, and I'll pepper you with questions along as we go along.
Okay, yes. So I was sitting on the couch one day, which I used to do often. I also, because I couldn't move very much, I had become severely obese and was barely able to get up off the couch.
Sure.
And I was having a conversation with my brother, and he was telling me about the races he was doing. He does marathons, ultras, Spartan races, hurricane heats, like all the races that I could imagine. And he tells me all about them and all these awesome people he's meeting at all of these races. And he gets to travel all over doing this. And I just said to him, wow, I wish I could do that with you sometime. Obviously, it's not going to be possible, but it would be fun if I could go to one of these races with you. And
Sure.
he very confidently said, you could. If that's something you really want to do, then you could. And I just thought he was so crazy because I couldn't barely get off the couch and walk to the restroom, much less walk anywhere or run anywhere. And so I definitely didn't think it was possible. I'm not sure if he thought it was possible truly, but he sounded confident. And so I decided,
Knowing Brian as little as I do, I feel like he just seems to have that mentality. That's awesome.
yeah, he
That's really cool.
definitely does.
He
And
just seems
so
stoked.
And so I just decided, like, well, what do I have to lose if I'm going to plan to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair? Or if he's wrong, then I can just spend my life in a wheelchair. But if he's right, then I can do all of these fun things with him that he's been doing. And so he helped me change my diet, what I was eating. He worked out a weightlifting plan. It was still during the time where everything was closed during COVID. So I found as many weights and equipment as I could and set up a gym in my garage. And so I started doing weightlifting 3 days a week and then later 5 days a week. I started out just walking down to the end of my street and back. And then I slowly progressed to where I was able to walk around the block and then a mile. And then he convinced me that I should start doing some virtual races. And I did a couple of 5K virtual races and discovered that I really like earning medals and t-shirts. And I think this was like golden for him because he saw that if I could earn a medal and a t-shirt, I would do just about anything. And so
I
so
love that so much.
I finished a lot of 5Ks, and every once in a while I would go maybe a week or so without doing any at all. And call me up and say, hey, maybe you should try another one of those 5Ks. And then we slowly got to where I was doing 10Ks. And I think I
So
only did
cool.
one 10K before I did the first virtual half marathon. And I did that a few times. And then I told him before that I really wish I would be able to walk all the way from my house to the beach, which was 16.21 miles. And so he told me to just try it. And on all of these walks, it wasn't just walking. I had to take my service dog with me, and
Sure.
she's a 40-pound Labradoodle with like 12-inch legs. And so she can't walk 16 miles. So I got a jogging stroller, and it's a 40-pound jogging stroller and a 42-pound dog. And I would push her on all of these walks, up hills and down hills. I had no idea how many hills that there were between my house and the beach, but there were a lot, and some of them were steep. But when we got to the beach, she was so excited, and my husband met us there, and we had lunch right on the beach.
That's amazing.
And it was so nice. I was definitely thankful that I didn't have to walk all the way back because that was a long way. And there was a lot more downhill than uphill. So it would have been a lot more uphill trying to get back home. But yeah, it was great. That was definitely something that I never thought I would be able to do any of those distances, but especially walking all of the way to the beach. And so now I tell people that I live within walking distance of the beach.
Yes, you damn well should. That's amazing. That's so cool. How, like, where do you live? Or like, give me a ballpark. I don't need people going to your house.
I live in Escondido, which is
Okay,
close to San Diego,
sure.
California.
That's awesome. And I love I love everything about that. So your dog can walk. It's just not You're
Yes.
just not like going to torture her by taking her 16 miles. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
okay,
And
cool.
she's able to jump freely in and out of the trailer. So she would walk for a while and then she would jump in there and ride for a while. And she often would want to walk on the flat and downhill, but want to ride uphill,
Of course she would.
which made it harder for me.
That's awesome. How long did that take?
It took, I think, 5 hours to
Oh yeah.
walk that.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. I mean, that's a big thing for anybody. Like I've done 16-mile hikes and they're like my feet are beat up by the end. I don't know.
Yeah, it
That's
was pretty
awesome.
bad.
That's so cool. Um, okay, so you walk to the beach and where do you go from there? And how long ago was this? Because I don't think I realized this was this short of a time scale. The fact that you mentioned you started this in COVID actually is new to me.
Right. I started this whole journey in February a year and a half ago.
Okay, that's incredible. All right, so what's after the beach?
Okay, so after the beach, I never tested, but I'm pretty sure in January, I ended up with COVID.
Okay,
And so I was very sick and very discouraged. I had to take pretty much a whole month off of doing any type of
sure.
walks or training. I could barely walk around the block. And so at this point, I started eating bad foods again. I wasn't wanting to go exercise, and I knew that I had to make some sort of drastic change, or else I was just going to go right back to where I was before, where I was going to be in a wheelchair and not be able to do any of the things that I worked for this whole year to accomplish. And so
Sure.
in my mind, the best solution was to join a CrossFit gym, which I didn't even know what CrossFit was. And then when I learned what it was, I kind of regretted that that's what I decided to work on, because it's a lot of Olympic weightlifting and gymnastics. And I had to work with one on one with the trainer um, for 3 months just to be able to get to where they didn't think I was going to hurt myself when I
That's
was doing
awesome.
the workout.
Where
And
I'm
so,
gonna pause because I have very mixed feelings about CrossFit. It sounds like you went to a really good gym. My
yes.
main mixed feelings of CrossFit are lack of quality control. A lot of the times, so you'll end up in places where like they just like have you snatch a 95-pound barbell without ever seeing you move. Where did you go? Because anybody in your area who wants to go to a CrossFit gym that like requires some level of maintenance, I love that. So I'd love to give them a shout out.
Yes, I went to MOA Fitness in San Marcos, MOA Fitness. They have been great. Their trainers seem to be very educated. They always make sure everyone's using proper form. For, I believe, the first month, at least, maybe even 2 months, I was using a PVC pipe instead of using a barbell because they wanted to make sure I had the form correct. Um, they encourage everyone to work one-on-one with the trainers to learn the proper movements um,
Fire.
and make sure that they're doing what they should be doing so that they don't have any injuries or anything like that. And I've never felt like they were pushing me to do more than I could.
Good.
Um, they even have told me that I need to go fewer days per week. When I started out, I was going 6 days per week, and now I'm down to 4 days, especially now that I'm running, because
Good.
that was too much. And they were worried that I was going to get burnout or hurt myself from going too many days.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good gym. And
Yeah.
like I have nothing against like CrossFit full stop. Like a bunch of my friends do it. One of the coaches, like the owner of one of the gyms where I work, came up in the CrossFit, and he's a fantastic coach. A couple of my athletes that I train do CrossFit, so it's not like a blanket statement. And that's
Yes.
actually why I wanted to ask you, because any gym doing it correctly like deserves that shout out. So that's fantastic. How's CrossFit? Tell me about your experience in CrossFit, because it can
Cross
be, I mean, fun as hell. How was it?
yeah, CrossFit is great. I work Monday through Friday, and so I wanted to be able to do CrossFit, but I have no energy in the evenings, so I knew that going after work was not going to be an option. So
Sure.
I wake up at 3:40 every morning. Well, Monday through Thursday now. I wake up at 3:40 in the morning so I can
Okay.
take care of my dog and myself and get ready. And then at 5 in the morning, Monday through Thursday, I do CrossFit. I bring
Okay.
my dog, but I don't want her to alert that I'm in distress, because sometimes when I exercise, she thinks I'm in distress. And so she waits in the car, the windows
She's still there.
down,
Okay.
and she watches us. And so my everyone in the class has commented that they think it's cute that they now have an audience, because she sits on the middle console and watches everyone doing CrossFit every morning.
I've never
And
thought of that in my life. Like that is okay. That
yeah,
makes so much sense. I'd never thought about a service dog watching someone exercise.
yeah.
Facts though.
But I've never liked group exercise or even going to the gym. But this is just so different because I never know what it's going to be. It's different every day. There are mostly the same people there. And so I've gotten to know people and feel comfortable with them. And when I first started, I was getting a little bit sore. But
Sure.
now I don't really usually feel sore. And if I do, then I just go for a run and I feel better.
Great.
Um, but yeah, I really love the CrossFit, and I definitely don't think I would be running now if I didn't start the CrossFit, because my brother says that strength training is the unsung hero of running, and you definitely need that strength training and all of that to be able to be strong enough, because running's a full body exercise, not just your legs. And so
Yeah,
it definitely took me from where I was to being able to run.
it's awesome. Yeah, he and I definitely have commiserated on that in the past. That's cool.
Yes.
Um, Sweet. So walking, CrossFit, and then how do you get to like running like where you are now?
Right. At that point, I really hadn't tried to do any runs other than
Sure.
what we were doing in CrossFit. And so I was supposed to go and watch my brother run a Spartan race. And he told me I would be able to just sit at the bottom and see him do a lot of the obstacles. And I was excited about that. But I made the mistake of telling him that I was disappointed that I was going to miss out on CrossFit because I was enjoying it so much and getting such a great workout doing that. And I was going to miss out on like 2 days that I would normally go. And so he said, well, I guess that means you have to run the Spartan race with me. And I said, Brian, I can't do any of that. I can't do all of the um, like monkey bars and all of that. And he said, yeah, but in your CrossFit class, you learn to do burpees. As long as you can do burpees, you can do a Spartan race. And I thought he was, I couldn't believe it. I thought he was being ridiculous.
Oh God.
But I decided that, well, I am missing all of those days of CrossFit and I'm already going to be there. So um, even if I don't do very well, at least I can say I've done one now. And I'm planning to do the trifecta with Spartan next year. And so at least I'll know what to expect if I
Oh
do
yeah.
one race this year. And so he convinced me to sign up, even though I thought it was a bad idea. And so he had done the beast the day before. He did the super that day, and then he was doing the sprint with me. And he and his friend um, helped me with some of the obstacles because if you're in the open heat, people can like help you boost over walls and stuff. But I was
Yep.
able to do a lot of the obstacles by myself, and
Oh yeah.
so I was surprised how many I was actually able to do. And I didn't run up the hills. It was in Big Bear. And I've told that's like the second hardest course and probably not
Oh
the best
man.
to start with,
That's what
but
I've heard as well.
they were steep hills. But I was at least able to walk up them and carry the sandbags and the buckets and all of that. And
Awesome.
yeah, and the whole time that we were doing this race, I was so tired and so sore and
Sure.
wishing I wasn't doing it. And then as soon as we crossed the finish line, I was like, I can't wait to do that again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definite type 2 fun. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I believe it was just a couple of days after that, on May 19th, I came home and I had enough confidence just after doing that to try running my first mile. And that was the day I ran a whole mile without stopping or walking.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So May 19th.
Yeah. Of
And
this year.
it's currently like early August. So like
Yes.
how have you made that progression up from, I mean, congrats on the Spartan. I'd love to get that out of the way. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And yeah, of course. And I may hopefully we'll see it at one in the future. I'd love to do some next year. Um, but if we're looking at what is that, 3 months? Yeah, less than 3 months. How do we get from 1 mile up towards 9?
I think a lot of it, and Brian said that this is a lot of it, is learning different paces. So I never understood how people could run long distances, but he taught me that you could probably run a mile at a fast pace, but if you're running 2 miles or 9 miles, you have to go at a slower pace. And
Absolutely.
so I learned starting on a treadmill and then
Cool.
running around a lake, I learned to do different paces. And then also on
Awesome.
the treadmill, I would set up my phone on the treadmill and I'd have my Whoop app and I could see my heart rate.
Oh
And so
yeah.
I learned that if I would take slow, intentional, deep breaths, that my heart rate would go down and then I would feel better. And so I've learned that if I start breathing heavy or it feels like my heart rate is going up, then if I just take a few slow, deep, intentional breaths, then it brings down my heart rate and I'm able to keep going and even go faster than I had been going.
That's so cool. Good for you.
Thank
And so we like, I mean, I know the answer to this more or less, or else you'd be broken, but like how, I'm assuming you've like slowly progressed over time. Like how have you added your miles, like all of that kind of stuff?
Yes, Brian has me set up on using Training Peaks and he sets up the runs. I started out doing 3 days a week
Great.
and we didn't start until after I did my first running 5K.
It's awesome.
But he adds a 1 day a week I do a long run and then I do speed intervals or a pyramid run. And then I do usually one shakeout run, just at an easy pace for fewer miles. And starting next week, I'm up to 5 days a week. So I went from, um, I did 1 mile 1 day a week for a couple of weeks. But then I wanted to try, I, I think it was early June, I did the 5K. And then after that, I started doing 3 days a week. And from, I think, maybe 4 weeks ago, I started doing 4 days a week, and now I'm up to 5 days.
That's awesome. And are you enjoying it?
I wasn't at first,
Yeah, yeah, me
especially
neither.
when I was walking that first year and doing the weightlifting, and
Sure.
especially the dieting part. Like, I don't like to be hungry. I like to eat. And that's one thing I think I like about running is
Yeah,
I still eat healthy food, but I get to eat a lot more than people who don't run.
sure.
And so even and I've learned to enjoy healthy foods. I didn't used to like vegetables and berries and things like that, but I definitely appreciate things like that a lot more.
Sure.
But yeah, when I first started walking, that was brutal. And when I first started running, my knees would ache and my back would ache.
Sure.
And what was weird is my core and my shoulders would get so sore. And I've had people
Yeah.
ask me about that. And um, just continuing to run and also doing more strength training to train that, and then mobility work. I'm doing stretching. At CrossFit, they say that you should, and I haven't been able to do this yet, but they say you should do at least as much mobility work as you do other exercise. And I
Yeah,
would have to quit
probably.
my job to do that. So I
Me
haven't
too.
been able to do that. But it seems like a good goal, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think anybody does it in practice, but it's like it's a really good mantra to have. Yeah, it's great. I fully agree.
But now I would say for the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've really been starting to enjoy running. I don't feel sore. Sometimes I'm sore before a run. My knees might hurt. Sometimes um, I have other joints that are hurting. My hips might hurt. And some days I'm like stiff and I can barely get out of bed. And I go for a run
Sure.
now and I just feel so much better.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah,
That's really cool. So, oh, that's amazing. Like,
thank you.
just I think, I mean, I know I have my own history of like weight loss and struggles, and a lot of people listening to this stuff as well. And it's just like so respectable to know how hard that is, and then add on like a degenerative disease on top of that, and it's unfathomable. So I just the most respect in the world. I can't
Thank
say
you.
anything more than that. And as far as what's next, like where are you going? Not that you like need to have big plans on the horizon, but uh, Brian told me you have plans. So how about you
Yes.
tell me if that's true or not?
So this year, in October, I'm doing in Tahoe the half marathon.
Fire.
And then in February, I'm going to do a full marathon. And next year, I'm doing the Spartan trifecta. And the year after that, we're going to do the rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon.
Oh shit, cool. That's awesome. That's a
Thank you.
really good set. If you're which marathon are you doing?
In Huntington Beach.
Okay. Awesome. Good. How do you feel about all of that?
I still can't even believe it's happening. It all happened so fast. And
Yeah,
like there were times when I just wanted to be done, and I was so tired. For a long time, I wasn't able to do anything other than exercise and eat and sleep and work. I had
sure.
no energy and I just didn't want to keep going. But Brian's the type of person that encourages you to keep going, whether you want to or not. And I'm so glad I did because I mean, I never thought I would get to where I am, and I can't even imagine where it's going to lead. And I'm starting to do more hikes and trail running and things like that to be able to get better at the Spartan races. And I'm definitely excited that I stuck with it and I'm where I'm at, but it definitely doesn't even feel real. And
Yeah.
like a lot of the people, especially at CrossFit, they didn't know me before. I had already been
Sure.
working out for a year. And so sometimes um, I forget that. And I even forget that I'm at the place I am, not the place I was. And it just almost feels like I'm walking around in someone else's body sometimes.
Yeah. I get that. I don't know if that ever completely goes away. Like for me, it's been, geez, 13 years since I originally like made like my fitness change, and it still feels really weird.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very odd. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of embeds in you. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Um, so on that note, like how if somebody's going through like a struggle or a gap where they just can't quite get there, like some people who listen to this are not necessarily in the place where you were, but they've I hate the term fallen off, but like it conveys the point. But like they're not quite where they were and they're frustrated and they're in a slump and everything. Like what do you have anything or like motivation? Because you said that there was a while there where it all just kind of sucked. Why'd you keep going?
Yeah, I mean, part of it was just not wanting to let my brother down. He does so much for his own races and helping other people. He's coaching multiple other people right now with their running. And so I just didn't want him to feel like I was wasting his time. Um, but also,
I
like
get
for
that.
me, what helped the most was stopping. Like I've always thought that to lose weight, you have to be on a diet. And that never worked for me because I never understood it. I can
Sure,
understand walking a mile, I can understand walking 5 miles and
sure.
getting from where I am to being able to do that. But then tell me, okay, you need to be on a diet and lose 10 pounds. And I'm like, whatever. And so,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and especially if there's a t-shirt and a medal at the end of the race, then I'll do it. So, I mean, that might not be something that works for everyone, but just find something that you're actually interested in and that you're actually going to do. Because, like, if someone told me that I have to do ballet or something like that to lose weight, there's no way I would have stuck with that. But
Sure.
finding something I enjoyed and getting to go out with my dog and push her in this darn jogging stroller that weighed way more than I should have been pushing, and go to all these places that like I had never even been to some of the places where I walked, and I would look up different parks and try to go to a different park each time, um, and she like would be so excited. It got to the point where she would wake me up in the morning and lead me out to her jogging stroller so that we could go, because she couldn't wait to go on her long walk. And
That's so
so
cool.
yeah, so just find what something that you're passionate about, and that you'll actually stick with, and don't focus on trying to lose weight or trying to be on a diet. Add more healthy foods and just do something active that you like, and try to I didn't only set a short-term goal. I knew I wanted to be able to do the Spartan race at some point,
Sure.
but I knew that it would be hard to think of how do I get from here to a Spartan race. And so for me, going from where I was to being able to do a 5K was very manageable. And then from there, being able to get to a 10K was manageable. So just finding small steps that add up to that bigger goal was very helpful.
It's awesome. I mean, yeah, to me, it basically sounds like support, accountability, consistency, find something you don't hate, right? Like
Yes,
that's pretty much it. Yeah, cool. Um, it's awesome, Jess.
thank you.
Well, it's pretty much all I have. Like you're an inspiration, truly. And I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to chat here. Do you have anything else you like want to share or say before we check out?
The only thing would be just don't give up. There were definitely times when I was ready to give up. It was definitely not always fun. Um, Even now, sometimes on my runs where I'm doing speed intervals, it's not fun and I don't want to do it.
I had one
And
Tuesday that like broke my soul. I feel you. Yeah.
yeah, and I thought for a while that if I wasn't enjoying it, then I wasn't doing a good job.
Sure.
But definitely now I'm learning to enjoy just, oh, I did something hard that I wasn't able to do before. So that even though it wasn't fun in the moment, doesn't mean that it's not something fun. And that definitely helps me get through those harder runs.
Appreciate that. Well, yeah, thank you so much.
Yes,
And
thank you.
stick around for a sec and we'll keep chatting. Anyway, thank you to everybody listening to the podcast. If you want to get in touch with me about any of this, shoot me a message on Facebook and we can chat. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you for listening to the show. To be clear, I'm not a doctor nor a registered dietitian, and nothing you heard was medical advice. You should always speak with a qualified medical professional before making any changes to your training regimen. If you enjoy the podcast or found it useful, please take a couple seconds to give it a rating or share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. And if you want more of this information, please head to the Trail and Ultra Running Nutrition group on Facebook. You'll be in good company with other like-minded people who like to do hard stuff outside.